Welcome to One Insight. My name is Rich Litvin. I grew up in London and I now live in LA. And this is a podcast for extraordinary top performers and their coaches. You see, I've coached some of the most successful and talented people on the planet. I can see what most people cannot see, and I dare to say what most people wouldn't dare to say. And what I know about success is that on the other side of it, it can be incredibly lonely. You can feel more of an imposter the more successful you become. And when you're the most interesting person in the room, you're actually in the wrong room. Clients who are more successful, more intelligent, and wealthier than you need your support more than they know and more than you can imagine. I coach around insight. Life looks one way, something happens, and the world looks different, and your entire world changes. It can happen in an instant. And this podcast is called One Insight because a single insight can change everything. In today's conversation, I'm talking to Hayden, who's a member of my community, 4PC, and he's stepping into leadership. And we start by distinguishing the 4 stages of transformation and where he is and what it means to have this next step in his world. And I don't say a lot once I've shared that idea about transformation. Sometimes clients need to process out loud, and you watch him get his own insights as he almost coaches himself. And then we distinguish some things together. It was just a really fun conversation with 2 people who play an interesting game, chatting together, and then the insights pop. To begin this conversation with my friend Hayden. Hi, Hayden. I want to distinguish something. I want to distinguish the 4 stages of transformation. Now, this relates to the hero's journey, as some of you may be familiar with as you listen. The 4 stages of transformation. Number 1 is separation. You leave your familiar world behind. Sometimes this is forced upon you, and sometimes you resist it for a long time. This stage requires commitment. Stage number 2 is initiation. You learn to navigate an unfamiliar world, a world of adventure, a world of struggle. And this stage requires 2 things, courage and a guide. And most of us listening will be familiar with that moment where we're on the edge of the doorway. Do I go through? Do I hold back? How that feels scary and exciting all at the same time. Then stage 3 is transformation. You return to your familiar world. You've changed, but the world hasn't. And that's often more challenging than leaving in the first place. Because ever been on a transformational workshop, done a training, worked with a coach, and everything seems to have shifted. The way you see the world is so different. But you walk back into the house, your wife, your business partner, your husband, the kids, nothing's changed out there. It's all happening here. So that stage requires community. Other people have been on that journey with you, so you're not alone. And then there's stage 4, transmission. This is the mastery stage. This is when you become a guide yourself and you help others to become heroes on their journey of transformation. You build your own community. That stage requires vision and audacity. And so, Hayden, I shared that at the intensive we're running right now, the virtual intensive. And when we chatted for a couple of minutes, you reminded me that it struck you, particularly this stage of transmission, which is, it feels that's where you are right now. There's time to share your message, your mission with the world.
Yeah. I realized over the last couple of weeks as I took this leadership role in this intensive that I was teetering between transformation and transmission, and now I really am fully in transmission. And embodying it is awesome.
Yeah.
There's a newfound confidence in me. And like I was telling you earlier, this evolution of my leadership. It takes leadership to go through all 4 stages, right? So I've always been a leader throughout my life, I can remember, but to really embody that transmission stage, I'm really feeling that now. And this idea of thought leadership as well, which you brought up earlier, I've used that word before, and seeing myself as a thought leader, but now owning it more. I think this last couple of weeks being able to step into owning I'm a thought leader, and that transmission, it's just very powerful. I feel it in my bones in a way I haven't before.
Yeah, it's very visceral. I can feel that experience. I'm in conversation with you. Yeah. Thought leadership is an interesting term. For some people, they get there by paying attention to the thoughts. What am I about? What I want to share? For you, it feels very visceral around leadership. This has been this journey of leadership for a long time. And the thoughts are now, okay, well, let me share some of the stuff I've learned on my journey. And you realize just how powerful it is, because at our intensive, you had an opportunity to share some of this. And people are saying, wow, I love that. Got any more?
Yeah. The Brilliant session, that's part of the intensive that I led the other day. I was very excited to lead it, and I sketched an outline of topics, points I wanted to bring. And the session was about what makes you weird, makes you money. And my slogan, though, has always been what makes you weird, makes you great. And then Variant, who's part of our community, helped me tweak it to what makes you weird, makes you money. And then I was very excited going into it, and I was like on fire in it. And I was flying, I was like soaring afterwards. And I'm still very just very proud of it and confident. Not to say that there weren't doubts that crept in a little bit, which I shared with the group. And when I shared with the group the doubts that crept in, it was like they were drawn to me even more. Right, and that was really outstanding and I guess I conceptually I know that, right, because I'm a smart person. I know that when you're vulnerable and you share vulnerability, it's connection. I watched Brene Brown's talks, I've read her books. Vulnerability is connection. I know that, but then to live it and to see it working in real time is so outstanding, and that's why I'm really sitting in this transmission stage where I'm like, wow. Whereas maybe the first 3 stages, separation, initiation, transformation, my vulnerability and not being afraid to be vulnerable was about me. All right, I want to transform. I want to be the best leader I can be. I want to be the best coach I can be, the best person I can be. I know I got to be vulnerable. I know I got to talk about things I don't want to talk about. But it was through the lens of bettering myself. And now I know I'm at transmission because I'm like, wow, I'm ready to turn the lens a little bit, that my digging deep into my fears and sharing my insecurities and sharing that when I am truly myself with my high energy and funny tactics, that I still have fears that's going to turn people off. And when I actually say that out loud, it makes people come to me even closer. And I'm like, wow, that's just a really great insight, aha moment for me to now, just turn that vulnerability into the intention of it was to work on myself, but now it's going to permission for other people. It's turning that lens, and that's true leadership. What you talk about as leadership is about creating more leaders. Yeah. So I'm really at that stage. It feels really good.
It does. If you're listening, you notice I'm not saying very much, and there's a reason for that. Sometimes your clients process out loud, and I was just able to be a witness to you sharing and getting the insights for yourself in real time as you shared.
Yeah,
So a brilliant session is if you're listening, you're not part of this intensive we're running a virtual intensive for 21 days. And I'm having the leaders of my community for PC. They had to apply for this, but then they get up to an hour to share their brilliance with our community. Up to 170 people can watch live or later on video and see the brilliance of each of these individuals. So I know this thing around vulnerability that you're talking about because I also get it intellectually. And every time I get vulnerable, I take a risk, people are drawn to me more, and it's counterintuitive, right? It doesn't quite compute, even though I get it up here. I have a belief, you shared it, that the job of a leader is to create more leaders, not more followers. And on my side of the vulnerability equation, Hayden, it's really edgy for me. I'm watching all this amazing feedback coming for these brilliant sessions, how impressed everybody is with them. And over here, the little part of me, the human part of me is thinking, why did I do this? Why did I share these people with my community? What if they like them more than me? And all this fear and doubt and insecurity comes up. But I have a belief about doubt, that if you don't have doubt or insecurity, you're not playing a big enough game. Yeah. So it's a clue for both of us. We're heading in the right direction, not the wrong one. And it's a bit scary.
I think you said what you just said on one of our small group calls the other day, of how your insecurity crept in, about, wow, you're letting some of your leaders in your community shine bright. And naturally you're like, oh man, like, are the people going to want to go to them? Or are they going to stop being my fault? You know, all this stuff. And what came up for me is, you know, thinking of it's interesting what I'm about to say, because it's both like humble and like bragging at the same time. So what I'm about to say is that with Rich, you having the courage to be vulnerable, to allow other leaders in your group to shine. If I weren't me, Rich, I don't know if I would let someone like me take the stage, because I know I am very charismatic. I know I'm a lot of energy, and I know I attract people. So that's why I find that fascinating in your level of leadership, that you're at that level of trust and your mission is bigger than your insecurity, that it's like, we're here to let everyone shine. Yeah. So that's it's funny that I was like, God, Rich is pretty courageous to share the stage with this guy, because I know I'm pretty good on stage. So.
I love that. I love that you're willing to own the truth of that. And yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for about 5 years, sharing more and more of my community with the world, putting them on a stage. John Wineland, about 4 or 5 years ago, we created I hired a theater for the members of 4PC, and we filmed them doing a mini 10-minute talk. They had to give a 10x impact. It's had over 1 million views. It helped launch his business. He's flying. And I love that. I'm proud of that. And again, the human part of me is, I didn't get a video that's been seen by that many people. So it's an edgy game to play, but it's the game of mastery. It's when you help other people to become heroes, you step out of the way yourself. And again, intellectually, I know that some people will admire me for that, but I'm not quite there yet. I'm still caught in the human side of, oh, damn it, they got more likes and more comments in our app than I did. And I just know this is the game I'm meant to be playing. Yeah.
In our small group meeting we just had right now, we talked a little bit about what you just said, is that we are humans before we are coaches. And how oftentimes we, as coaches, because we're so self-aware, oftentimes we know that we don't practice what we preach, or practice what we coach. And to give ourselves permission to just be human first. It's okay to have envy or jealousy, or it's okay to be not consistent. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to, not know what you're doing. And sometimes as coaches, we forget that we're human beings first and foremost.
Oh, it's even worse as coaches, because we catch ourselves, we do something that isn't healthy for us, or we catch ourselves doing it, and then we start judging ourselves for doing it. And then we start, because we have such a high level of self-awareness, we judge ourselves for judging ourselves for doing it in the first place, and we're caught in this loop.
Yeah. We judge ourselves for not being self-compassionate.
Exactly.
We're angry at ourselves that we're not more compassionate with ourselves. It's funny.
One of the things about 4PC is that I'm really clear. I filter for peers. I'm not looking for people who are hoping one day to be like me. Look, I get some people have some admiration about some of the things that I do, but the entrance requirement to 4PC is that I should be a little bit in awe of you, and you should be a little bit in awe of us. That feels like I'm meeting with peers. It's an edgy way to build a community. I could have made literally millions of dollars by saying yes to all sorts of other people who wanted to come into that community. And I'm really clear about, when you have a high level community, you've got to set the bar high. And the bar I have is that at some point, luckily I created the group, because if I applied, I might not get in. I want the bar to be continually moving too, that at some point we might go to some people in 4PC who say, I've got the money to renew, I'm back again next year. And it's like, well, hang on. I'm not sure you're playing a big enough game for the year ahead. Let's review. Let's see. Let's work out what's the game that you could be playing that would have us you and us be excited for you to renew, rather than just, okay, I'm ready, let's renew.
Yeah.
So let me ask you on that note, what's the game you're up for in the year ahead?
I knew that was coming.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm going to come from this, if I'm going to come from the place of being a thought leader, if I'm going to come from the place of transmission, you know what I've been struggling to get this book started. I've talked about this book about, Ignore Nothing, which is this, war cry for coaches to step up to the plate. And it wasn't until this intensive that I couldn't understand why I was having a little bit of a hard time getting the book started. And now I'm a lot more fired up to do so because, well, I just had an insight that the message that we're saying to the world is the message that we most need to hear ourselves.
Yep.
And I just gave myself chills because my brilliant session the other day was all about owning your weird, embracing your paradox. What are you fighting for? You got to stand for something and come from that place. And that's not where I was coming from for this book that I wanted to write. I was coming from the place of, well, I want to tell coaches like how to be better coaches. And I still do, but now if I'm coming from the place, if there's a fire inside of me that I'm fighting for these coaches to be here in a year from now. I am a thought leader in this space, because if I don't tell this to them, no one will. So it's almost like the paradox of success, the paradox of leadership, that it's both a blessing and a curse, right? It's both a calling and a burden, right? To be this burden that now I realize, wait a second, if I don't put this message out there, no one will. Right? To in the early stages of people's journey, it's who am I to do this? And now I'm totally embracing, who am I not to do this? Mm-hmm. Why not me? Because if it's not me, it's not going to get done. That's been very powerful for me. So in the next stage of me, it's getting this book out there and really producing. I mean, I occasionally produce blogs and content, but not from the place of owning. I'm a leader in this space, and my message is clear. So in terms of, I have something that must be said, and I'm willing to say the things that other people aren't willing to say.
That's great.
Yeah, because I think there is a fear there, not so much of things. My fear was not things I don't want you to know. My fear was what I do want you to know. And what I do want you to know is that if you don't do the work to find a fire within you, you're not going to make it. You're not going to be successful. And most coaches don't make it. Now that I'm saying this message, though, coming from the place of, I'm a leader in this industry. I'm a thought leader in this field. I am a pioneer in the art and science of professional coaching. So if I do not do this, no one will. It's a new attitude about it. It's quite empowering.
So again, if you're listening or watching, I'm not talking to Hayden in this moment. I'm speaking to you. I could see on this conversation, Hayden's processing out loud. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do as a coach is to create the space for your client to speak themselves into the world. And you just did that. And there's no coaching needed, nowhere we need to go. Absolutely. It's dawned on me over the last 3 years of trying to get my next book out into the world, Hayden, that I'm writing this book for me. The book is called Why Success Hurts. And I've been caught in that trap myself. So yeah, the clearer you get about right for you, the sooner that message hits for your people. And writing about the stuff you're afraid to write about, what I noticed, whilst the book hasn't come out, I haven't stopped writing to the really high performers I love to spend time with. And what's happened is that my entire community is up-leveled to the caliber of people I'm speaking to. every single week I see the number of people who unsubscribe to my blog. It's a clue that I'm not for them and they're not for me. But the blog, whatever the audience we have, keeps growing and the community keeps up leveling. And that's not just this group of 30 people we have in 4PC. You can see this at this intensive we're running right now. The caliber of people in this room is extraordinary. And so I'm speaking to myself right now, not to you, to remind myself to keep sharing the things that I'm afraid to share. I think we're there, man. I think that's it for today.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Well, may I share an insight and a question? You can totally say no. But what just came up in me, though, is you said you have to share the things that you're not willing to share. And then you wanted to end the call. So I'm like, is there something that you would like to share?
Nice. Well, for me, it's getting that book out into the world this year.
Yeah.
I have to. It's too important. I was just talking to my coach around it. Got some coaching this morning myself around this. So that will come out rather than a pithy quote in this moment around what I'm afraid to share. It's getting that out to the world and owning that I've been caught in this trap that I'm about to start teaching to everybody about the painful side of success that most people never see. So watch this space.
I can't wait for the book.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, Hayden.
Thank you, Rich.
For most of human history, it wasn't called coaching, it was called leadership. And it's what I love to do, to coach people, to lead people, and to mess with people's thinking. If you'd like more of this, or if you'd like to learn more about our community of extraordinary top performers, go to richlitvin.com/oneinsight.